it's Woody, and that's the kind of sort of nickname that I picked up when I was at school. But the surname's Aroun, Aroun. So it's a short surname. But it doesn't have an H, and a lot of people get confused sometimes.
Yes.
It's not Aroun, it's Aroun, Aroun. Yeah.
I actually.
Yeah, but you got it right. Yeah.
Okay, I actually wondered about the very same thing, I must say. But be that as it may, okay, a very unique surname. Let's look at the matter at hand. You are a trade analyst and former NUMSA parliamentary officer. Let's understand what is a trade analyst, because I do believe you are the right person to be talking about the issue around AGOA.
Yes, look, I suppose, there's the academic definition of a trade analyst, and then there is, of course, people who work in trade issues, and I think there are different perspectives around trade. People work in customs, and there are various branches, and of course all the trade protocols, trade agreements. So there are those who actually specialize in that. Now, I just want to say that I'm not really a qualified trade analyst. I did work for the National Union of Metal Workers for about 20 years. But through that experience, we have some exposure to what goes on, and particularly in the areas of trade, tariff issues, and so on. And that's the entry point of my interest, and I think now with the AGOA thing on the agenda and the AGOA summit that is to take place, that opens tomorrow, I think it's important that we have some discussion, and that we try to understand as much as we can, given that there's a context, and that there's a war presently going on in Israel, bombarding Gaza. And here we have South Africa having the summit, playing host to the summit with one of the most powerful superpowers in the world, the United States, and of course the United States is very, very complicit in their involvement and their support for Israel, together with other allies as well. But I think it's important that we understand the context and try to unravel and untangle some of the kind of complex issues that come up in the discussion.
I think the other view, as far as perhaps analysts, economists, government officials, are heads of government as well, their stance would be pretty different. I mean, my opening question to you was, is trade worth more than the life of a Palestinian child or a Palestinian child? And of course, economists would perhaps then say trade is, and you can come in and correct me or give your perspective on my statement, which is trade is important with allies, with people, with governments, whether we agree with their policies or not. Trade is important for our country to be able to flourish, because if we take a very hard-nosed stance on AGOA and other such seminars, obviously it would mean that we would be marginalized from mainstream partnerships, bilateral arrangements, etc., to our detriment. That's the one part of the statement. The other part of the statement would be, but our government is speaking with a forked tongue. On the one hand, they condemn the genocide playing out in Israel. On the other hand, they agree to sit at the same table with people that are in total support. The most powerful country in the world, that is the United States, in total support of the genocide going on in Palestine.
Yeah, I'd respond to that, and I think very briefly. It's not about debating. I think this AGOA summit, it isn't really, and as I said, in the context of what is happening in Israel and Gaza, the bombardment of Gaza, in the context of that, it's not about the benefits or the merits or demerits of AGOA. I think we need to shift the focus here, and we need to shift the focus to exactly what you said, the latter part. Is the country, is South Africa being forked tongue? Are they speaking with a forked tongue on this? And I think that's the issue. And that's the issue that I would like to highlight, because I think what we are seeing is that there's been a lot of frantic lobbying, and where you find that the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, and they've been practically pleading with the United States for the continuation of AGOA. And all that happened, and we go back a few months ago, when there was all this diplomatic squabble over the presence of a Russian vessel in Simonstown, and then allegations of South Africa shipping arms to Russia in the Russia-Ukraine war. And then after that, the Americans responded. And they responded, and what they did was this: is that they wanted to scuttle South Africa's participation in AGOA. So you had all this, and there, subsequent to that, there was all this very, very frantic lobbying. The minister putting a delegation of social partners together, going off to Washington, and virtually pleading with the Americans not to suspend South Africa's participation from AGOA. But I'm not sure if I should go into this, but I think for the benefit of listeners, what is AGOA? And very, very briefly, it's the what they call the African Growth Opportunities Act. It was enacted in May 2000, and then renewed in 2015 when President Obama signed what he called the AGOA Trade Preference Extension Act. And the whole purpose of the thing is to give preferential market access to the U.S. for qualifying sub-Saharan African countries. So that's very, very briefly. But as I said, it's the context that's different. It's the context that we have to look into, and that has South Africa done enough? They've at one level, and there seems to be a sort of a dual approach here. So at one level, you had DIRCO, and they initially started off with very lukewarm statements, and then gradually you found that some of the statements became much stronger in their condemnation of Israel. But then you have the other approach, and the other approach is where you have TIC now rolling out the red carpet for a huge American trade delegation that's coming here, and they're probably here already, and then entertaining them at the time. And we need to ask ourselves, is this right? Should we be doing this? Can we separate this? Can we just separate, on the one hand, these atrocities that are going on and this barbaric behavior of Israel, supported no doubt by the United States? Can we separate that from what is happening and these so-called AGOA talks or summit that is taking place? And I don't think we can. I think we need to be very, very bold where we stand. We've always said we supported the Palestinian people. This country has made statements about that. And now I think we really need to owe them some answers. And that comes to the question: is trade really worth more than the life of a Palestinian child? And it's no sane person would ever have a stand up and say, oh well, the life of the child, and we're not just talking of a child, we're talking of thousands that have been killed already. So it's like I said, you can't. You've got to take a stand on issues, and we've got to say to ourselves, we got to condemn the military invasion, the bombardment, the indiscriminate killing. We've got to condemn that in the strongest possible terms, but at the same time, we must not leave out those allies. And the U.S. is one of the key players here that have openly pledged their support for Israel, and their allies as well. And we need to take a stand on that. I think we owe the Palestinians a lot of answers. They've put a lot of faith in South Africa in supporting their struggle. And I think if you listen to some of the comments from the Palestinian academic professor Haider Eid, he's made a very strong plea, and he's actually pleaded, and he says to the people of South Africa, it's a matter of conscience. Where is your conscience? And this is what it all comes down to. It comes down to a question of conscience. So, I'm
Okay,
really,
so
really disappointed.
right, Woody. So we're really talking about two issues here, are we not? We're talking about bilateral ties with, um, I guess, the developed world, the US being one of those. And in this specific discussion, we are talking about the United States, and then we're talking about what's playing out in Palestine, the genocide, the mass wholesale slaughter of innocent civilians, very especially babies and children. I can't even view, the stuff that's being put out on the screens, but it has to be, it has to be put out so that the world can be shocked into the reality. But it seems that it has made a difference as far as the UK, France, and the United States is concerned. It hasn't seemed to have made any impact seeing all of those innocent babies, children, and mothers killed and butchered the way they have been butchered. So that's the one issue. The other issue is bilateral trade. Would it you suggesting that it seems as if the South African government literally begged to remain on as part of AGOA? They don't want to be left out in the cold. How would it you come from a trade union background. Do you think that if we hadn't gone ahead with the summit, if we had said to the United States that we will not trade with you because of the atrocities being played out in Palestine, economically, how would it have hurt us?
Yeah, this is look, this is very debatable. And as I said, I don't think we really would have the time here to look at the kind of merits and demerits and try and quantify some of the figures. But let me go back a bit here. AGOA was signed in 2000, right? In May 2000, and it's been renewed on a number of occasions. But you must look at the terms of AGOA, and all the protocols have been set by the United States. It's an act that they passed to give preferential access to their markets, to give sub-Saharan African countries access to some preferential access to their markets. But they set the terms for that. And if we and coming from Labour, and I'm absolutely disappointed that Labour is actually sitting there as a social partner. And of course, Labour and the biggest federation have defended their participation. They claim that it will be economic suicide if they don't attend. And strangely, they have a very peculiar way of actually protecting jobs. And that's what they said, they're protecting jobs. But in 2015, there was what the U.S. concluded what was called the Paris Poultry Deal. And that deal allowed the U.S. to export chicken, what they call chicken bone-in pieces, to South Africa on a quota basis, duty-free. The result, and then of course that increased every year incrementally. There's an increase in that quota, and the quota now stands at around just around close to 72,000 metric tons. Now, when that happened in 2015, and those imports flooded the country, together with imports from other parts of the world as well, but those imports flooded the country. Thousands of jobs in the poultry industry, local poultry industry, were decimated. There was no talk of creating additional jobs or new jobs in the local and domestic industry. Thousands of jobs were decimated. There was strong protest from local producers and manufacturers and so on in the poultry industry. So the logic is, and this is the question we're putting to Labour. What are you really protecting? You're protecting nothing. And a lot of the key industries that have been, that are so-called industries that they claim to have been benefiting, like the automobile industry, clothing industry, and so on. I think those figures, we need to unpack those figures to sort of understand this thing properly. But like I said, it's not about the demerits and the merits and so on. What's happening right now, and the important thing right now, is we see this in the context of an ongoing attack on the people of Palestine, on the people of Gaza, and we have to make a very, very strong stand. And I want to actually qualify the stand. And I think the BDS has done this. The BDS and the coalition of forces that have supported and have highlighted and on a daily basis updated the experiences of what the people in Palestine are going through. They have done some wonderful work. They made a very clear call repeatedly to the minister, to the government of South Africa, expel the Israeli ambassador. No. South Africa's answer has been no. There's the Israeli ambassador still sitting there comfortably. They have refused to even listen to the BDS on that. So we're living with this very, very sharp contradiction here. We want to stand up and we want to be counted as those very sympathetic to the people of Palestine, but sitting down, and at this particular time, sitting down with trade representatives from a superpower that is directly involved in supporting Israel and providing them with the military aid and so on. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. So I would think this is not the time, really to go into that debate, because it's going to bring us back to that question. Is trade worth more than the life of a Palestinian child? And
okay, Woody.
And I said
Yep.
it. It's absolutely, that is something that you cannot compromise on. Life
All
is
right.
far more important.
I want to read. I want to read something that my producers just brought through to me, and we must commend a few countries around the world. They may not necessarily be superpowers, but they have spoken out very vocally in support of the Palestinian people. We do know that Ireland and Spain are two of the countries that have been very vociferous in their support of Palestine. We've just now heard that Colombia has recalled its ambassador to Israel, and they've joined a growing list of leftist South American countries curtailing diplomatic ties with Israel over this war. And also ahead of Colombia, Chile withdrew its ambassador to Israel for consultations, citing Israel's unacceptable violations of humanitarian law in the Gaza Strip. We should be doing the same thing. We've been calling on our government from the time this genocide has started, and they are absolutely silent on the matter.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, it's absolutely, it's absolutely, that's exactly and precisely what this country should have done. And they don't wait for others to take the lead as well. Stand up, be counted. But I think it's quite clear, and you could quite clear. If they do that, then they would anger the U.S. And if they anger the U.S., then it's quite possible that the U.S. will scuttle these AGOA trade talks again. So it's quite possible that they would do that. And I think this country doesn't want the risk of happening, which is why it's kind of dual approach. So Delco says one thing on the one hand, but stops short of actually making in condemning the U.S. and its allies. And then on the other hand, they stop short of expelling the Israeli ambassador. And it's quite clear they don't want to anger their U.S. partners. So here you have the summit. The summit is taking place tomorrow, and I really stand behind the BDS. I think they've called on people. They intend to actually protest on Saturday, and I think people who really feel and support Palestine's struggle for proper independence. I think people ought to show that support and make it very clear to South Africa as well. And South Africa, Minister Patel must answer to the people of Palestine. He must answer that question. Is trade really worth more than the life of a Palestinian child? He must answer to that.
Undoubtedly, there are going to be placard protests outside of the summit, and rightly so. Two questions very quickly before we wrap up, or two statements I want to make, and I'd like you to respond to it. And that is, of course, I'm actually surprised. We've had lots of protest marches over the past few days. all around the country. But I'm very, very surprised that no trade union organization has gone, or gone out on their own in their own capacity to stage a protest, a march, whatever it might be. Neither have they joined any one of the protest actions that that rolled out here in South Africa. Were you surprised?
Yeah, no, they have been. Look, there have been some, smaller independent unions that have they've completely distanced themselves from it. I'm just very, very disappointed in the position that the largest federation, COSATU, has taken. They're right in the middle of it, and it all comes up. It all comes up, because they're a social partner in the National Economic Development and Labour Council, and it all stems from there.
Yep, sad state of affairs, very especially from South Africa and the South African government, who were subjected to the horrors of apartheid for a long, long time. We have been emancipated, and we can't, as a government, show our total support to the people of Palestine. Shame on our government. Shame on South Africa. Okay, and that's, it's not a general blanket statement. We do know that there are amazing people and organizations in South Africa who are speaking up for the rights of the Palestinians, and we salute those people. Woody Aroun, trade analyst and former NUMSA parliamentary officer, thank you indeed for your insights on this matter. You go well, and God bless.
Yeah, thanks, Judy, and thanks for giving me a chance and then to share some of my views on this. So thanks a lot, and goodbye.
Lovely talking with you. It is exactly 8:32 a.m. News and Views on Salam Media. Our next guest is Monica Genia. She's a spokesperson at Doctors Without Borders. But before we go to her, we are going to take a look at a video clip. And this is by Dr. Ramzi Baroud. He's a Palestinian journalist, author, and editor of the Palestine Chronicle. And the question he's asking in this clip is as follows: is this a religious war? Let's take a look.
Is what's happening between Israel and the Palestinian people right now about religion? Is this a religious war? Before I answer this question, let's remember the difference between religion and faith. Religion is a doctrine. Faith, it's about values. Sometimes faith is an interpretation of religion, but it's a different collective experience. Now, Israel, when it was established by the early ideological Zionists, was supposed to be about religion, but it actually wasn't. The Zionists manipulated the Jewish religion. Everyone knows that. And we also know that most, if not all, of the founders of the ideological founders of Israel were in fact atheists. With time, religion began to factor in Israel as very fundamental to their political discourse. This is why you have the likes of Itamar, Ben Gvir, Netanyahu, and Smotrich calling, whether directly or indirectly, for a religious war. For Palestinians, be it Muslims or Christians, yes, religion factor, but not in the same way. For them, it's about faith. It's about using faith to mobilize against the Zionists and against the Zionist colonial encroachment on Palestine. In other words, for Israel, religion is like a sword. It's used to attack, steal, and rob people of their land and their lives. For Palestinian, faith is like a shield. It is there to strengthen people, to mobilize people so that they may defend their land, their families, and their children. These are completely two separate values. So when you hear Islamic Jihad and Hamas and you think, oh, this is about religion for them, it really is not. Because for generations, Palestinians have fought using different ideologies. At times it was the socialists who took charge of the armed resistance in Palestine. At times the secularists. At times the Islamists. Ideologies change, but faith remains in place. For Palestinians, this was never about religion. It has always been about faith.
The Ahmad School of Excellence in Lebanon provides world-class